Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Before I get started, if you can see my t-shirt, Trash City Radio Show. Now I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Joe Swinford, who runs this radio show. If you like punk music, rock music, bit of rock and roll, and everything in between, he runs this show. I'm going to leave a link in the descriptions. I know some of you like music. I have my own music channel as well, Joe Stunner Music. But go over and have a listen to the Trash City Radio Show. I will leave a link in the descriptions box, and a big shout out to Joe Swinford, who's a good mate, and he's done me and my music proud as well in the past. So have a look, have a listen. I think you'll like it. All right, let's talk some boxing. At the weekend, we have a DAZN card. No surprise, because there's normally a DAZN card on every week. And there are some good matchups on it. There's Tyrone McKenna against Lewis Crocker. McKenna's 23-3-1. Crocker is 17-0, so that's an interesting matchup. 10 KOs for Crocker, so he's got a little bit of pop. 26 years old. Hasn't really fought anyone, to be honest. McKenna has, but hasn't always won. So that's an intriguing matchup. Then we've got Troy Williamson against, and I cannot pronounce this guy's name. It's an Irish name. Forgive me for my ignorance, but Kalmin Agiarko. Evidently, I've destroyed the name. Yeah, Troy Williamson is 21-1. He's only had one little, I think it's a four-round runaround after losing his British title to Josh Kelly. And Mr. Agiarko is undefeated. He's 13-0. So that's an interesting little matchup. Agiarko's only got 7 KOs out of 13 wins, but a curious matchup, Sean McComb, 17-1. He's fighting Sam Maxwell, who's 17-2. Another good matchup. But the main event is Michael Conlan against Jordan Gill. And I think this is very, very intriguing and could turn out to be a bit of a thriller. Every week I say, such and such a fight's going to be a thriller. And sometimes they're damp squibs, but I'm going to keep saying it because as a matchup on paper, I know fights aren't fought on paper, but this is an intriguing fight. You've got Michael Conlan, age 32, former Olympian. He's coming off a bad defeat back in May to Luis Alberto Lopez. He got chinned in 5 rounds. Of his 18 wins, he's got 9 KOs. Both his defeats have been stoppages. You'll know the other one, which was to Leewood back in 2022 last year, about 18 months ago now, I think. But Jordan Gill is also coming off a bad defeat, and that was last October. I thought it was sooner, but I checked this, and it's actually last October. And that was to Kiko Martinez, and he got smashed up in 4 rounds. And this was the first defence of his EBU featherweight title. And he won it from Karim Guerfi. Guerfi, is that how you pronounce the guy's name? Karim Guerfi, Guerfi, I think it's spelled. Yeah, and it was a thrilling fight, that, because Gill was down in the 7th round, and I think he had injuries to his knee or his ankle or something. He was hanging on the ropes, trying to counter. Guefi looked like he was going to stop Gill, and Gill found a punch from nowhere and knocked him out in 9 rounds. And in that 7th round, Gill was, he was almost knocked out. He landed very awkwardly on his neck, and he appeared to be out for a couple of seconds, but he actually woke up, recovered, and somehow won the fight. But he did lose it. 7, 8, 9 months later, whatever it was, to Kiko Martinez. And that was Martinez's last great performance, to be honest with you. He's retired now. Gill's 27 wins. He's got 8 KOs. And both his defeats, both these fighters have got two defeats, both by stoppage. This was a retirement against Mario Enrique Tinoco back in 2019. So both have vulnerabilities. Jordan Gill is, what is he, 20? I can't remember how old he is actually offhand. I might get this wrong. I think he's pushing 30 now. He's a little bit younger than, I think he's younger than Conlan. I should have checked this beforehand. But if you look at the actual schooling, the sort of background, probably Conlan had, obviously he went to the Olympics, he had that amateur pedigree, and he's fought some decent people. By the way, he also fought Karim Guerfi and knocked him out in one round. And so that was, if you want to compare and contrast, I know this is, not the triangular theory doesn't actually work, but Guerfi, who gave Gill hell, got done in a round by Conlan. And that was at the back end of last year, so it's not that long ago. He also fought Miguel Marriega, who was 30-5, won a unanimous decision over him. TJ Doney, he beat him over 12 rounds. That was a unanimous decision. And Baluta, what's his name? Yanat Baluta, is that his name? That's another name I always massacre. But he won a majority decision over him. Now, as we know in subsequent fights, Baluta, who is always match tough, is very, very good. He's a very good fighter, probably a good European level fighter, and he really pushed Conlan to the wire. That was in 2021. Now, Gill doesn't have that level of opposition. I think he's been matched a lot more carefully. He does have a good 10 round decision over East Bellotti, and Bellotti is enjoying this sort of Indian summer of a career. He's had some terrific wins recently. I think he's a 2-weight Commonwealth champ now, Bellotti. And, apart from that, you're talking people like Ryan Doyle, back when he won his the Commonwealth featherweight title. That was in 2018. He fought a guy called Emmanuel Dominguez, stopped him in 3. Dominguez, no great shakes. I think he already had about 7 defeats on his record. And it's not, don't look at Gill's record and think, well, he's fought a load of killers. He hasn't. He has been managed very, very well. He's a former Commonwealth champ and he's a former EBU champ. So the question really is, does he have anything left? Now, he's 5'7", Gill, orthodox fighter. And Conlan, 5'8". Has he won any titles, Conlan? I'm not sure whether he has. I think did he pick up, obviously he fought for the WBA title and lost to Lee Wood. But he might have had a couple of those WBA, WBC, WBO trinket things that get you ranking. But he's never, I don't think he's won any actual titles, what I would call proper titles, established titles, that aren't just exclusive to, a particular ruling body. So he might have won the Irish title for all I know. I don't think he did, but I'd have to check on that. But make no mistake about it, this is a crossroads fight for both these guys. Now, Gill, as we know, very, very sort of in-and-out fighter, lots of herky-jerky movements, likes to be busy, starts quite quickly. Don't forget what he did to Lee Wood in the first round, nearly flattened him. Luckily, it was at the end of the round, but Wood got up and was fine and worked his way back into the fight. But throughout that whole fight, that's a good illustration of how busy Conlan is. He likes to let his hands go. He likes to get in range quickly. He takes a few risks. You saw that against Luis Alberto Lopez. He was firing lots of punches, but he just got absolutely flattened by one single punch. And Lopez hits hard. Lopez is a good fighter. Until recently, very underrated. He doesn't have a great deal of pop on his punches, despite that hellish knockdown against Lee Wood. You wouldn't say that Conlan was a one-punch guy, but I always get the impression he doesn't try to land powerful single punches. He likes to fire these clusters, these little salvos, in and out, lots of, rangy movement. Jordan Gill is more, I guess you'd call him conventional, a bit more, he's orthodox stand-up sort of fighter. Likes to put pressure on, but mostly does it behind the jab. Defensively, he's okay, can be a bit flawed in places. I would say Conlan is a sort of frenetic, busy fighter, whereas Gill tends to prefer to be more precise, fire punches that are a bit more conventional, a bit more textbook, if you like. Whereas Conlan is he's got a little bit of his own style going on there. Conlan in places reminds me a little bit of Amir Khan, tries to fire lots of punches. His style is different, but he does have this thing where he likes to fire lots of punches. And a lot of the time he's firing punches just for the sake of firing punches. It's all clusters and combinations, and there isn't always a sort of rhyme or reason to what he's doing. Gill, by contrast, can be a little bit too predictable, a little bit too conventional. But like I say, anyway, they're both coming off bad defeats, so this is going to be a mental battle as well as a physical battle. There's no doubt that Lopez's knockout of Conlan was highlight reel stuff, whereas for Gill against Martinez, and this was 13 months ago, he was basically just smashed up. It wasn't a case of him, I would say, being outboxed or anything. He was simply the pressure of Kiko Martinez was too much, and Gill's sometimes porous defence was found wanting, and he was basically smashed up and knocked out and stopped. I mean, he knocked down I think twice, but he just couldn't do anything with Martinez. Completely the wrong style. Interestingly, Martinez, a busy fighter who likes to get in close and fire punches, although a different style to Conlan. Conlan is another one who likes to get in close and fire lots and lots of punches, and I think that's what he'll do from the off. I think he'll be looking to put pressure on Gill. There is a question mark over Conlan. Is that bad knockout to Lopez going to haunt him? But I think this very early on. I think this could be a case of who sheds the demons first, who declutters their mind first of the thoughts of being stopped so badly. I think, if I have to guess, and this is I don't say this with any great confidence, but I think Conlan will start fast, will put it on Gill early on, will ask questions of him. I think Gill will probably be behind after say 4 rounds. I think this is a 12-round fight, by the way. I think in the middle rounds, Gill might start to have a few successes. Don't be surprised if there's a few cuts flying around here as well. But I think down the final third of the fight, I can see Conlan maybe getting a second wind, going back to the speedy combinations. I think he might sort of contain Gill, keep him in his box. Jordan Gill likes to, like I say, he's more conventional. He likes to fire punches with a sort of plan, if you like. He isn't the type of guy who will fire a punch unless he has a reason for firing it. Whereas Conlan was just busy; he'll just fire all sorts of punches. I see that element maybe containing Gill a bit too much, and I see Conlan pulling away in the last third of the fight and winning either a late stoppage or points. When I say points, probably 116, 112, something like that. That's my prediction. Conlan to win, late stoppage or points. What do you think? You leave your comments below. And yeah, what do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? If you don't agree with me, why? Who do you think's the most damaged? Because they both had those bad defeats. How much of a psychological test it is for both guys? I think it's a big psychological test. But leave your comments below. I'll answer them. Thank you as always for your time. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. Also hit the like button if you could do that. That would be a big deal. And I will catch you all later. Looking forward to reading what you've got to say. And bye for now.